Connie's going to sit up there, then I'll sit up there.
What's that?
If you're going to sit up here, then I'll sit up there.
Oh, if you're
Yeah,
so down
otherwise
there,
we'll
I'll
give a
sit
little
down
tip.
there.
That's fine.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm glad to see you here or on live stream. We begin our Shabbat evening service tonight in Siddur Lev Shalem on page 10. Page 10. Yedid nefesh av harachaman Mishoch avdach el retzonach Yarutz avda kamo ayal Yishtachaveh muhadarach Ki ye'erav lo yedidutach Mino fetzuf v'chol ta'am Hadur na'eh ziv ha'olam Nafshi cholat ahavatach Ana elna rufana la Beharot la noam zivach As titchazek v'titrape V'haitalach shivchat olam Higtiyemu rachamecha V'chusna al beno havach Ki ze kama nichsof nichsaf Lero betiferet uzach Ana eli machmad libi Chushana ve'al titalam Higalena Ufros chaviv alai Esukah shelomach Ta'ir eretz mikvodach Nagila v'nismecha bach Maher ahu kiva moed V'choneni ki me'olam. Is that wind?
Yeah.
All right. We continue with the traditional Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms on page 11. Lechu neranena l'Adonai Nariya litzur yishenu Nikad mafana b'todah Bizmirot nariya lo Nikad mafana b'todah Bizmirot nariya lo Ki el gadol Adonai Umelech gadol al kol Elohim Asher biado mechkarei haaretz V'toafot harim lo Asher lo haaretz V'toafot harim lo Asher lo Arba'im shana akud bador Ve'omar elam to'elivav Hem ve'im lo yudu drachai Asher nishbati ve'api Im yavun el manuchati Shiru l'Adonai shir chadash Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz Shiru l'Adonai baruchu shemo Basru meyom leyom yeshuato Sapru v'goyim kevodo B'chol ha'amim nifleotav Ki gadol Adonai U'hulal ma'od Norahu. Al kol Elohim, ay, ki kol Elohe ha'amim elilim, v'Adonai shamayim asa. Hod v'hadar lefanav oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho. Havu l'Adonai mishpachot amim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz. Havu l'Adonai kivod shemo. Se'u mincha U'olachatzrotav Hishtachavu l'Adonai behadrat kodesh Chilu mepanav kol haaretz Imru v'goyim Adonai malach aftikon tevel ba'al timot Yadin amim b'mesharim Yismechu hashamayim v'tagel haaretz Yiram hayam Umelo Ya'alo Sadai V'chol asher bo az Yeranenu kol atzayar Lifnei Adonai Kiva lishpot haaretz yishpot tevel b'tzedek ve'amim be'emunato Let's read the next psalm responsively, beginning on page 15 and then concluding on 16. Adonai reigns, let the earth be glad, the many distant lands rejoice. Flashes of lightning illumine the land, the earth watches and trembles, mountains melt like wax at the approach of Adonai, at the approach of the Master of all the earth. Worshippers of idols be shamed for praising false gods. All that is deemed supreme bow before God. You, Adonai, are above all that is earthly, exalted over all that is worshipped as divine. Light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright. Rejoice in Adonai, you righteous people, and thank God as you pronounce the divine holy name. Continue. Mizmor Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash Ki niflaot asa Hoshia lo yamino Uzro kodsho Hodia Adonai Yeshuato Le'enei hagoyim gilat tzidkato Zachar chasto ve'emunato Levet Yisrael ra'u kol afsei aretz Et Yeshuat Eloheinu Hariu l'Adonai kol ha'aretz Pitzchu v'ranenu v'zameru Zamru l'Adonai v'chinu Bechinu v'kol zimra Bechatzot rod v'kol shofar Hariu lifnei hamelech Adonai Yiram hayam umlo'o Tevel v'yoshveva Neharot yimchau chaf Yachad harim yiranenu Lifnei Adonai kiva Lishpot haaretz Yishpot tevel b'tzedek Ve'amim b'mesharim Adonai malach yagazu amim Yoshev kruvim tanut haaretz Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romamu. Page 21. Mizmor David. Avul Adonai b'nei Elim. Avul Adonai kavod va'oz. Avul Adonai kavod shemo. Ishtachavu Adonai b'hadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim. El hakavod hirim. Adonai al mayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach. Kol Adonai b'hadar. Kol Adonai shover arazim. Vaishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon. Vayarkidem kemo egel. Livanon v'Sirion kemo ven re'emim. Kol Adonai chotzev lavodesh. Kol Adonai yachil midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yacholel ayalot. Vayechasov ye'arot. Uhechalo kulo amer kavod. Kulo omer kavod. Adonai lamavu yashav. Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yitem. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. We continue now with on page 23, L'chadodi. L'chadodi, l'krat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamur v'zachor b'dibor echad hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad ushmo echad v'shemel tiferet v'litila l'echadodi l'krat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechuva nelcha, ki mekor ha-bracha, merosh mekedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila, lechadodi, likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Mikdash melechi melucha, kumitzei mitocha hafecha, Rav lach shevet b'yemek habacha, v'hu yachamo alayichem la, lechadodi, lekrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Hit na'ari me'afar mi livshi bigdei tifartecha mi ayad ben yishai beit halach mi karva el nafshi ge'ala lechadodi lechrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Hit orari, kiva ore kumi ori, ori shidaberi, kavod Adonai alayich nigla. Lechadodi lekrat kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lo Teva Shiva Lo Tikal, Ma Tishtochaki Uma Hatemi, Bach Yechasu Ani Ami, Venivnata Ir Altila, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Hayujum Shisa Shosai, Varachaku Kol, Mivalayich, Yasi Salayich, Elohayich, Kim Sos Chatan Al Kala, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Yaminu Smol Tifrosi V'yeh Adonai Taritzi Ayadish Ben Partzi V'nismecha V'nagila Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, Boe v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tzahala, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi lekrat kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela, lecha dodi lekrat kala, Panei Shabbat Nikabela. We're seated as we continue on page 27. Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat. Bakramim alai moreim tishmana oznai, tzadik atama yifrach, ke'erez balvanon yiskeh, shetulim beveit Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, od yenuhum b'seva, deshenim v'rananim yehu, lahagid ki ashar Adonai tzori, v'lo avlatabo. We turn now to page 29 and we read responsively the next psalm in this series, Psalm 93. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you were enthroned, you are eternal. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. Mourner's Kaddish is on page 30. Anyone think, should we say it?
Perhaps for the sake of those
All right,
who are
okay.
on stream.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah. Ba'alama divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mavarach l'olam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha rechu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mrumav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We all rise now as we turn to page 39a for the beginning of the main part of the evening service. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Barach Lilam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Uma'avir Yom Umevi Laila Umavdil Ben Yom Uvein Laila Adonai Tzvaot Shemo El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael, amcha havta, Torah u'mitzvot, hukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta, al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochbeinu uvkumenu, nasich b'chukecha, Mach b'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha l'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu v'orech yameinu, uvahem nehege yomam v'layla, v'avatcha tasim imenu la'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. B'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol vavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol ma'odecha v'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al bavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam B'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzo beitecha u'v'sha'arecha. Adonai lechem emet. Let's read together on page 43a. This is our enduring affirmation binding on us, that Adonai is our God and there is none other, and we, Israel, are God's people. God is our sovereign, redeeming us from earthly rulers, delivering us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors, a just retribution upon all our mortal enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding and marvels beyond all reckoning. God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies, exalting us above all those who hate us. Adonai avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. God smote in anger all of Egypt's firstborn, brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom, and led them through the divided water of the Sea of Reeds. As their pursuers and enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. They praised and acknowledged God's name. Umalchuto baratzon kiblu alehem. Moshe uMiriam avnei Yisrael lecha anu shira. Basimcha rabba va'amru chulam. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehila dohosef ele malchut akaru v'necha b'kayal lifnei Moshe zeli anu v'amaru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miyad chazak memenu baruch atah Adonai ga'al Yisrael hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, baruch atah Adonai, hapore sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Please rise now as we recite the biblical verses which mark the transition to the next part of the service, and then Chatzi Kaddish, and then the silent Amidah. V'shamaru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. V'shamaru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael Od hi le'olam, od hi le'olam, v'shamaru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz, v'shamaru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat v'yinafash, shavat v'yinafash, shavat v'yinafash, v'shamaru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam b'rit olam. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah Alama difra kirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael Bagala, bagala, uvizman karif, v'yimaru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mavarach, le'olam me'almaya yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'av v'nharam v'yitnaseh, v'yithada, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei l'kudusha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ba'alama v'maru. Amen. We continue on page 53, please rise. Vayachulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam v'echal Elohim yom hashvi'i malachto asher asa v'yishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol malachto asher asa v'yavarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i v'yikadesh oto kivo shavat mikol malachto asher bara Elohim la'asot Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur B'Hanora, El Elyon, Konei Shamayim Va'aretz, Magen Avod Bidvaro, Michaye Metim B'Mamaro, Ha'el HaKadosh she'en kamohu Hameniach la'amo B'yom Shabbat Kodsho Kivam Ratza lehaniach lahem Kivam Ratza lehaniach lahem Lefanav na'avo b'yirav afachad V'nodeh lishmo b'chol yom tamid Ma'on habrachot El hahodaot Adon hashalom Mikadesh hashabat Umvarech shavi Umeniach b'chdusha La'amidu shnei oneg Zecher lama'aseh v'reheshi Eloheinu v'levotenu, ritzei v'nuchatenu, kadashen v'mitzvotecha, v'tein chalkeinu b'toratecha, saba'enu mituvecha, v'samachenu b'shuatecha, v'tahir lebeinu l'ovdecha be'emet, v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu b'yahava v'ratzon, shabat kodshecha, v'yanuchu v'Yisrael, mikadashei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'alamad divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechonu v'yamechonu v'chayedecho be'Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach, le'olam olam me'almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitharam v'yitnaseh, V'yid hadar, v'yid olev, v'yid halal, shmei kudsha, b'rechu la'el, amin kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran ba'alma v'imru, Amen. Titkabal, tzlot hon, ufuton d'chol Yisrael, kadam avon v'shmaya v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya v'chaim, aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom v'rumahu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Kiddush is on page 55. Thank you. Savri, Rahai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddushan mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho ba'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikrei kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta V'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh HaShabbat. Please remain standing as we continue on page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol. La te kedula yotze bereshit. Shelo asanu kagoye ha'aratzot. Velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama. Shelo sam chalkeinu kahem. Vigoraleinu kechol hamonam. Vanachnu korim. Shtachavim umodim. Lifnei melech. Malchei hamlachim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Eshkoch, thank you, Rabbi Barnard. I want to take us now to Kaddish Yatom, Mourner's Kaddish, here on page 58. And as we turn to page 58, we'll note that today, the 11th of Adar, tonight and tomorrow, we are observing in our congregation the yahrzeits of Fanny Litz, Walter A. Leopold, and Edward Robinson. As well, in the coming week, we'll be observing the yahrzeits of Rose Goldberg, David Cohen, Miriam Cohen, Keith Sakes, Leonard Fox, Jacob Kushner, Sam Shear, Irving Troy, Benjamin Rott, father of Claire, and Claire Lee, and grandfather of Ben, Ben is here tonight. Belle Axelrod, Sidney J. Lipson, Lillian Berman, Joan Dane, Samuel Litz, Ralph Cohn, Bess Garfunkel, David Goodman, Gerald Newman, Hannah Rudovsky, Paul Bassa, Rachel Ring, Abraham Foreman, and Stefan Lewis. In addition to these, we also remember those we've lost within the recent past, in the last 11 months, among whom are June Howard, Gerald Sapadin, Pam Simowitz-Weber, Hal Schneider, Rosemary Bloom, Avram Ogman, Russell Mason, Judy Kell, Jerry Schockler, Eddie Sakes, Mary Jane Harry, Herschel Ostroff, and Francis Rothschild. If there's anyone else that you are remembering and you're here tonight and you'd like to share a name, I'll invite you to do so.
My cousin Marcia Schulman.
Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom, can be found on page 58. If you're reciting Kaddish tonight, please join me. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shmei Rabbah. Ba'alama Divra Kirutei, Hayamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayei Nechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, V'izman Kariv, V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mavarach La'alam, U'lolamei, Alamaya. Yit Barach, V'yit Tabach, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Nasei, V'yit Hadar, V'yit Ale, V'yit Halal, Shmei, V'kudsha, B'richu. La'ela, Min Kol B'yachata, V'shirata, Tushbachata, V'nechamata, Da'amiran Ba'alama, V'imru Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabbah Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Asay Shalom B'mromav, Hu Ya'asay Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Connie, do you have any announcements to share?
I'll make them very short. We're going to hear a nice talk about education tonight in the words of our great Jewish poet Bob Dylan. We'll find out lots of information because the answer is blowing in the wind. Come tomorrow, we have services. Sunday, we have a Purim Carnival in the afternoon. Monday night, beginning late afternoon, we have all sorts of things related to Purim, including a spiel, a reading, and lots of fun and joy. If you want to know about other things that are happening, either see us after services, read the board outside, or Google our website, and you will find it all.
Thank you, Connie. I have a few additional items to announce. We are celebrating some anniversaries this month. As it turns out, I guess we're probably going to add a few more anniversaries every month as we get closer and closer to the summer months, I guess, because we have more people who got married in March than got married in February or January. Among those celebrating anniversaries this month are some folks who are not with us, as well as some folks who are with us tonight. Not with us are Bill and Harriet Friedman, Alan and Edie Rao, and Amy and Stephen Rothschild, all of whom are celebrating anniversaries this month. But the last anniversary that comes this month also happens to be the anniversary of some folks who are with us, George and Sarah Barnard. So Rabbi Barnard and Sarah, Mazal Tov, how many years? 49. Very good. There's, I was going to say this, Tom, yeah, we could probably play with the number a little bit and get, yeah. It's true. I think with 49, we count the Omer, 49 days and followed by 50. So it's my hope that your 49 days, are followed by an even bigger and even better celebration, just as we have 49 days of the Omer followed by a 50th in Shavuot. So that, yes.
My daughter Pamela Brown is celebrating her 41st birthday.
Okay, great. Well, in any case, I will wish you guys a happy anniversary, Mazal Tov, and we are very excited that you're with us here tonight. So hopefully everyone, I will say, in addition to the answer being blowing in the wind, hopefully no one gets blown away in the wind. I know I was on the walk over here, which is kind of a long walk in this kind of blustery weather. I was a little bit afraid that I would be knocked over at some point because I was leaning into the wind at certain points. So as long as the shul doesn't wind up in Oz somewhere over the rainbow, we can count on everything to proceed as normally this weekend. I will say if you're around the building and you notice any odd things like a leak anywhere. Matt Lee noticed a leak earlier today. He was in the building and he spotted something, and I said, "Oh, good on you for spotting that." And we figured out what's going on. But if you spot anything like that around, serious weather events can sometimes reveal some of those things for us, and so it can be helpful. Keen eyes are always nice. We'll conclude with Yigdal. Rabbi, as you've been leading us tonight, perhaps you'd like to pick a tune. Or I can pick one. Yehuim Chai v'yisavach nimtza v'yein el mitziuto echad v'yein yachid ki yichudo nelam v'gam ein sof le'achduto ein lo demut haguf v'eino guf lo na'aroch elav kedushato Kadmonos l'chol davar asher nivra. Rishon ben Reshit Reshito. Hino Adon Olam B'chol Notzar Yorei Gedulato U'malchuto Shefa Nevuato Netano El Ansei Segulato V'tifarto Lo Kam Yisrael Kemo Sheod Navi Umabit Et Emunato Torah temet natan le'amoel al yad nevio ne'eman beito lo yachal yifael velo yamir dato le'olamim lezulato tzofeh v'yodea setareinu mabit sof davar bekadmato Gomer ish chesed kemifalo noten rashara kirishato yishlach l'ket yamin meshichenu lifdor machake ket yeshuato metim yechayel berov chasto Baruch Adehi Ad Shem Tehilato Metim Yachayel Berov Chasto Baruch Adehi Ad Shem Tehilato. Shabbat Shalom, thank you for coming tonight, and I know many of you probably are looking forward to hearing from Sonia. Sonia, I know is speaking on education. I don't know too much, and I don't know if someone's been identified to introduce you, or if you want to introduce yourself. He needs no introduction. There we go. Very good. I'll move this out of the way.
Okay. I am who I am. All right. So, in preparing for this talk, I made a list of what I thought were the biggest hot button issues in education today. And then I decided to talk to educators I know in several districts. I spoke to a high school English teacher in Cincinnati Public Schools, a high school criminal justice and sociology teacher and union building representative in West Claremont, a middle school English teacher in Springboro, a high school English as a second language teacher in Middletown, a fifth grade all subjects plus science specialty in Dayton Public Schools, and the public affairs spokesperson in Mason City Schools. So that was pretty representative, I think, of our area. But before I begin, because I'd like this to be a dialogue, I'd like to ask you the same question. What do you think are the biggest issues facing public schools right now? Jeff?
One, performance. Obviously, kids doing better, number one. And number two, external interference in terms of all kinds of non-issues being raised that distract administrators and teachers and educators from doing the first job.
Okay.
And Sonia, will you repeat?
Oh, yes.
Maybe we can find the mics down. They've moved it.
Okay. What Jeff said was, first of all, student performance, increasing student performance, and second of all kinds of outside forces coming in and distracting from the purpose of education and interfering with administrators and teachers' ability to get the job done. Did I say it right? Okay. Next. Yes, Frank. Teacher retention. Okay, next. Connie.
Two issues, how to bring students back from COVID, and number two, how to teach students critical thinking.
And I missed saying what Frank said was teacher retention, and Connie said bringing students back from COVID and how to teach kids critical thinking. Okay. Teacher salaries, okay. Boys in the hallways. Bullying by the lockers. Okay, bullying. Okay. Now think about news. What do you hear on the news about education? Banning books. Okay. teaching critical race theory,
Transgender
transgender
issues.
issues,
Voucher school choice.
voucher school choice, okay? So, yeah, I mean, those are the things that, like, and Jeff, you let it off with, those outside issues are what we hear all the time, all the time. You'd think that those were the biggest issues. Well, you really would think so. And when I made a list, I had those things in the list as well. And coming back from COVID and student behaviors. Okay, what the teachers told me certainly didn't match up with, it matches up with some of what you said, but it went so far beyond. 100%, all the districts, oh, and Bobby, you could raise your hand. Let me get back to you before I do. Bobby has a daughter who's teaching in California. Bobby, from your daughter's perspective, what's the biggest issue? Okay, discipline, and elaborate a little more.
And coming back from COVID, do you want me to really?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay. I hear my daughter vent every day. She teaches third grade. Third graders missed first grade and kindergarten. They never learned classroom skills. They never learned socialization. So they basically started school in second grade.
So let me repeat what Bobby's saying. Her daughter teaches in California, third grade. They come in, they have no socialization skills. They basically missed first 2 years of schooling. They never learned how to operate in school.
They never learn how to behave in the classroom. They talk constantly. They interrupt. They are incredibly rude. And I have to tell you that this is a class that is mostly Indian. So you would
South Asian or Native American?
No, South Asian. Yeah.
You would think that these kids come from homes that are pretty structured, but they never learn how to behave in a classroom because they miss kindergarten and first grade.
Okay, so the kids never learning how to behave in the classroom. All right. 100% of all the districts I talked to, the number one issue, social and emotional well-being, kids in crisis, mental health, and resulting in, lack of socialization, lack of, all those post-COVID behaviors. So here's the litany of what I got. No support for mental health and development of today's children. Social media, never having the ability to turn it off. Resulting in a lack of real interpersonal connection. So the ability to talk with each other, engage in real conversations, the lack thereof. Suicidal ideation, especially among girls. Now the more urban districts stress the societal issues and abuse that kids are facing. Many in foster care, parents in prison, ICE issues, having to write letters, to ICE for students, homelessness, gun violence, opioid crisis, and addiction. All of these issues were the primary concern, resulting in behaviors in the classroom that are just so hard. And the teachers I talk to are ace teachers, really teachers I admire. I reached out to teachers who, have been teaching for a long time, I've known for a long time, and they are just top of the line educators. So post-COVID behaviors, you mentioned third grade, same in fifth grade, same in middle school, same in high school, especially so lack of respect, more than usual inappropriate behaviors for school. It's almost like they forgot how to behave. So in third grade, they never learned how to behave. In middle and high, it's like they forgot how to behave. One teacher in one school was saying how even when they came back from COVID in her particular district, they weren't allowed to to talk to each other in groups, so they still had to use Google Meet within the classroom to do small group. They had to do it on the screen even though they were sitting in the classroom together. Now that was extreme, but some districts experienced it more than others. So some districts were out for the full 2 years. The districts that went in after a year and a half or after half a year had a much better situation. So in California, they were out the whole 2 years.
They were out the whole 2 years, but and then the other thing that my daughter had to deal with is she had a hybrid year.
Yes.
So she had Zoomies and Roomies at the same time.
Yes.
She was in the classroom with her Roomies. She had 24 kids. She had 17 on Zoom and 7 in the classroom. And of course, the 7 she had in the classroom were the worst discipline problems because they were the ones whose parents said, I've had enough, and went back to school. And so, yeah, so that's.
And so Bobby is describing another situation some districts did, where you had a hybrid where you were teaching kids in the classroom face to face, but others were at home watching because their parents kept them at home for learning. And you know how bad it is when you're watching something going on in Zoom that's happening here and you're at home and you can't really interact, and it's the worst of all situations. So some districts did a better job of others. The ones that were out for the full 2 years, those students are having the worst time. So for example, in Mason, they gave parents the choice in the second year to come back or not. And some of my friends kept their kids home the full 2 years. And the kids that went back, much better off psychologically and academically and behaviorally. So that is definitely an issue. Another thing that happened because of COVID in the high school level and because of the labor shortages, where many more students got jobs and they got the taste of working. So what's happening in a lot of the districts, well, most of the districts at high school, is that more students are working and they're working late hours. And so they're finding much more incentive to go out into the real world and not make academics a priority. Or they're coming to school exhausted and tired. And recently there was an article in the New York Times about migrant children who are working in industries and food processing plants and everything else that have come here for shelter. And but the same is happening with kids who are not migrants, our students here. They are working to support families because their families need the incomes. So, you know, it's, and the teachers are worried right now. Speaking of bills, I'm going to talk about a lot of bills in a few minutes, but another bill that I'm not going to talk about too much, but right here it's appropriate to, is that there's a bill that will allow students to work even longer hours, because right now there's a limit. And teachers are really worried that that'll make the situation even worse. On the other hand, their income is needed, because another problem is the growing population of families and children who don't speak English. So here's one thing, just, you know, because, you know, Mason's my home district. I was assistant superintendent there. And when I was assistant superintendent 20 years ago, there was no home language survey had ever been administered. And I was very aware of the need for this, because in Kentucky, there was a federal lawsuit about a district that didn't do it. And I saw all these immigrant families enrolling. At the time, I uncovered 47 languages and started the first ESL program. Some of you know this because I talked to you in advance. Don't give away. How many countries do you think are represented by the student body in Mason City schools right now? Just yell out a number. 100. Over 100 different countries. You were. How many languages do you think? Close. 95 or more. It's 90. They've identified 95. And kindergartens, incoming kindergarten, 42% of the incoming kindergarten class is English as a second language. Now, since I hired the first teacher 20 years ago, they've greatly expanded, and fortunately Mason has the resources to really do a good job. But other districts, or where Mason was, 20 years ago, without the resources or the skills, and, it's really an issue. And plus, a lot of these families, are coming, not like the Mason families, with professions, but a lot of them are really struggling for income as well, which is what some of the other urban districts are facing. So these are the real, the real issues. Ben? Oh, okay. So what about all the stuff we hear? You mentioned CRT, critical race theory. Is that an issue? And I asked in every single district of the teachers that I talked to. Universally, in those districts, it isn't a current issue, but as Jeff so wisely said, people are trying to make it. And you recently probably read the AIM, the big thing on the news about this accuracy in media. They interviewed teachers in Sycamore and in Mason, tried to create a big hubbub, okay, and saying that the principal of the Mason Early Childhood Center said that they're teaching critical race theory in Mason City schools and blah, blah, blah. So a bunch of us, 12 of us, went to the school board meeting right after this report because we knew this was from the outside and we thought there'd be a lot of people speaking up. Well, evidently one of the school board members, who is kind of on that side, let them know that, nope. And the district fully supported the principal. No one spoke up. It's a dead issue, even though the outside agitators try to push it. Mason has this culture of inclusive, there's three, what they call big rocks: culture, inclusive excellence, and personal learning. And they base everything they do around those three areas. And so inclusive excellence is one of the biggest rocks, and they weren't going to let these outside people disrupt. But one teacher said for the very first time she had a really angry parent. And listen to this example. And this is what the news is trying to stir up. This is what Fox News influence is. She had assigned a textbook article, an article in a textbook, approved textbook, about a female pilot. And she was going to do a compare and contrast assignment where the students can pick and research any two female pilots and compare and contrast their experiences. In this article, it happened to be an African-American female. She talked about how she had to overcome racism and sexism. So the parent called and started yelling, "What is this article you assigned? This is 1,000% critical race theory." Because it mentioned sexism and racism. Okay. Why would you be teaching this? And so the teacher explained the whole assignment, and the parent seemed to calm down, but when she hung up, she immediately called the superintendent. "You're teaching critical race theory." And once the superintendent found out it was pre-approved from the textbook, all was fine. But she said, quote, "I am sick of my son being punished for being a white male." And that is the crux of what, is trying to be pushed by the outside and has taken over 2 local school districts. So another thing you may have been hearing in the news is what happened in Forest Hills. Okay? And that's where school board members were elected who wanted to get all this critical race theory and diversity out of the schools. Forest Hills had had diversity days for many years, celebrating diverse cultures. And last year, they canceled it. The school board canceled it like a week before it was supposed to happen. Huge protests. Students walked out of the school on the day that it was supposed to be. So as a result, the school board then passed a Culture of Kindness resolution on June 22nd last year. And the Culture of Kindness resolution banned anti-racism, it banned teaching anti-racism, critical race theory, intersectionality, and identity curriculum, and banned all of that from student instruction and staff training. And so parents then filed a lawsuit, and they are under an injunction not to enforce it. But in the meantime, they had to hire a new superintendent. One of the candidates pulled out over this Culture of Kindness resolution, and the current superintendent is actually enforcing it. Teachers are not allowed to bring any new books into their classroom. They can only use the approved textbooks, and they're really afraid of retribution. Lakota is another district that is under pressure right now. So other areas that outside pressure to eliminate are any suicide prevention programs, social emotional learning. They're really divorced from the reality. I mean, you heard what the teachers are saying is needed, but parents are some parents are very worried that they want control. They're afraid that schools are taking control over things that should be their prerogative, okay? And that's what the push is. So this Darby Body, who's a Lakota school board member, last year she went, quote, undercover into the schools without permission. Anyone's supposed to have, permission to enter a school. You sign in and whatever. No, she went without permission and started taking photographs, including of a student and student work. And so they even had the superintendent had a police issue her a no trespassing order. Well, after that, she attacked the superintendent, Matt Miller, accused him of sexual harassment, of his divorced wife and all this. And so his wife, mess. He finally resigned because he was under such threats. He wrote a letter of resignation because it led to an increasingly hostile work environment, death threats against him, and felt like it destroyed his career. Now, Lakota was an excellent school system, and now they are in utter turmoil. And the latest thing that she did was at a school board meeting, this woman compared the school district's suicide prevention program to the Nazi handbook. So, this is the issue. These kind of crazy people are running for school boards. There's one on King's school board right now. Another school board member called to the newspaper's attention, it was just in the Courier-Journal, that one of the things after COVID that has happened is that school lunch programs during COVID were free for everybody. And now they're not free anymore. Well, some parents don't know that, and there's always been an issue with free and reduced student lunch. Some students won't take in their applications, even if students fill them out, because they're embarrassed. They have a different way of charging then, and that's been an issue since forever, since I was in education. And so students are running up thousands of dollars of unpaid lunch fees. And so there's like $7,000 unpaid dollars in King's school district lunch fees, and they're being faced with having to give students alternative lunches. This is happening in districts all over. But my friend heard about this, and so after this news article, and so she started a GoFundMe, and I contributed to help pay off students' lunch debt so these students can continue getting student lunches. Donations are made to pay off student lunch debts all over. I mean, Cincinnati public and urban districts have this program where lunch debts are forgiven because of a grant, and then anything left over, usually citizens' donations take care of it. So then this crazy school board member has started bombarding and having parents call the office is that this GoFundMe campaign has to be stopped because these are lazy parents who are purposefully not paying, and they shouldn't have their lunch debt reduced. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things, as Jeff just said so perfectly, that are making and pulling away from what really needs to be done. So that's, social emotional learning. Now, I've got to say one thing. There is something to these complaints against some of the social emotional learning curricula. So Ohio developed a set of standards for social emotional learning that are completely voluntary districts don't have to abide by them or teach it. They're not being assessed, in other words. But they're good things, and given the problems, you want to do something in your school to teach the behaviors that they haven't learned or that parents are not teaching. But of course, with budget concerns, a lot of times you go the cheapest route. And one of the teachers I talked to told me that they bought this social emotional learning workbook. The superintendent bought it for all the students. And the teachers are having fits because it asks questions and it's like, what are some of the problems? Name a problem that you're having at home. How would you fix it? Things that this is not how you approach it, and this is the kind of thing that rightfully parents are objecting to. So really what should be happening, there's nothing wrong with parents questioning. They should question what's happening in the schools. But what they should be doing is not just accusing people, saying, you're teaching CRT or, cut out all social emotional learning. Let's look at the curriculum materials. And that's, again, what Mason has done very well. They have all of their curriculum materials on display. It is very well articulated and is always available for people to look at. Not all districts are as open. But every parent should have the right to ask and look, and they always have the right to ask for another assignment, for an alternate assignment, with reading or anything else. But unfortunately, that's not what the political agenda is of some of the people who are really trying to push schools in other directions. And this leads me then to the legislature. So before I get there, any questions on what or responses or, yeah.
How do you find out about these people running for school board? I remember the most recent election, there were some candidates for school board, and I tried my best, but I really could not tell you if any of them have a bug up there or about CRT.
A lot of people malign our Cincinnati Enquirer, but I will say, regarding the situation in Forest Hills, the situation in Lakota, those have gotten a lot of coverage in the Enquirer.
Yeah.
And a lot of really in-depth coverage. I don't know as much about other school districts
Right.
in Hamilton County or whatever, but those two have gotten a lot of.
But back to Ben's question about how do you find out about school boards and local candidates. The best way is through your local political parties. So if you are a Republican, check out with your local Republican political party. If you are a Democrat, check your local Democratic Party. There's one, Hamilton County has you're in Hamilton, aren't you? Yeah. They have a wonderful local political committee. In Mason-Deerfield, we have the Mason-Deerfield Democratic Club. There's the Warren County Democratic Party. There's a Sycamore Democratic Club, a Blue Ash, there's Butler, but your local Democratic clubs, and most of them have Facebook groups. Get involved with them. It's such a great question, Ben, because that's exactly in my retirement. A lot of us, well, several of us here, Royal and Rabbi Barnard, we're very active in the Mason-Deerfield Club, and Frank. Not Frank, Fred, I got the F's, Fred, FR. Yes, but League of Women Voters very often doesn't get to the school board candidates. And so if get with your local club or local organization, they will tell you what the affiliation is because they're, quote, non-political offices. But the other thing is, a lot of these, the way you really know anymore is the right-wing candidates let that be known because they will advertise themselves as conservative school board candidate, big signs. So if they don't have that by their name, most likely they're okay, because anymore they really want people to know that they are fiscally conservative, or they are conservative, or they are what are some Christians sometimes as well. Okay, yes, Fred.
Is the same polarization happening in parochial schools, in the religious schools, private schools?
Are the same issue?
That I didn't. That's a great question. I didn't talk to anyone who is a private school teacher, but I would say yes, depending on the school, because I know what happened at St. Susanna. Again, it depends at the Catholic schools who the priest is, who's in charge. They had a change, and from being a very inclusive, liberal Catholic diocese, they went really right-wing. And a lot of my friends have left. I mean, really right-wing. It's pretty bad. So I think it depends, yeah. Bobby?
Yeah, you'll be happy to know that my daughter's with the teacher. She taught for 9 years at a day school in New Jersey, like a co-teacher, Maine Elliott and Alice Bershella, and is teaching in Ranana and is facing the same problems.
Interesting. Bobby said a friend of her daughter's who's made Aliyah and is teaching in Ranana in Israel is facing the same problems. And it's universal. It doesn't surprise me, because education is the most political institution in the world. Education is designed to when the revolutions would shut down, the schools, protests in school. I mean, education is a very political thing, and so no wonder it's the center of all this controversy. Yes.
I mean, maybe we'll come back to this later, but all this conversation, which is blowing me away the most, are what I call the disciplinary, behavioral, kid management issues. We've always had disrupting kids in classrooms. There's always been smart Alex, there's always been all those kind of things. But the fact that the kids have either lost or never gained their socialization skills and don't know the classroom structure, how to make the whole thing work, which is a skill they're going to need for life.
Right.
Not just in the classroom. I mean, I am blown away here. And some of these other issues, there's always been an underachieving schools issue. There's the idea of the outside influence. Well, we'll have to fight that.
Right.
That's an issue. But in terms of dealing with the kids themselves and the baggage they bring to school,
Right.
Economically, family-wise, social media-wise, God, it's jungle out there. I mean, I watch Abbott Elementary. It always pretty funny to me. But these issues, I don't know how you change the kids. And part of it is the COVID issue, but part of it is that make things worse.
That you're right, Jeff. And really, and I'm going to get to I had a little aha, and I don't know if I'm on the right track with it. And I'm going to actually call up Brad Matthews' office and see if I can have a conversation with him about this. Brad Matthews, our new representative, our new very right in our district. I'm wondering if all this thing about CRT and all these programs, if those parents are just having a different reaction to the same situation. Because, it's so universal, that they just, the reason I have that idea is I listened to, we're getting to the education bills right now. Okay, I just listened to the hearings for Senate Bill 1, which just passed, was it yesterday? 26-7 along party lines. Okay, Senate Bill 1 is an education overhaul, it passed Wednesday. It robs the state school board of most of its power and gave it to the governor. Okay, now what the hearings went over, all right, so what happened was, for the last couple years, the state school board has accomplished nothing but squabble over CRT and social emotional learning. I mean, they have been squabbling and, at each other's throats, and nothing's, no one's going to disagree that the state school board has been a mess and that the Ohio Department of Education hasn't been very effective. Well, everyone can agree to that. But so what happened was 4 state school board members were up for re-election. They were the ones who were who were saying, you can't teach CRT, you can't teach social media. They got defeated, and 4 sane people who really just want to work for kids got elected. And immediately then, the Republicans in the Ohio Senate created State Bill number 1, Senate Bill 1, which strips the school board of its power. Well, if that's not a political move, I don't know what is. And it gives the governor to appoint. It renames the Ohio Department of Education into the Department of Education and Workforce and appoints a director who would be a member of the governor's cabinet. Currently, the Department of Education answers to the Ohio Board of Education, which would lose almost all of its powers except for educator licensing and school district territory transfers and the hiring of a state superintendent, who would be an advisor. The implementation date is June 30th, and but in order for it to go into effect, the House has to also pass it. But now the House is divided, so that might delay it. But in any case, it's probably going to pass eventually, and this is going to happen. But in the hearing, listening to the 2 sides, it was really interesting because both sides were arguing something needs to be done for student achievement. Student achievement is horrible. We need to bring it up. Something needs to be done for all of these issues. But the Democrats who were speaking were saying, but changing the structure isn't going to fix that. We need to get at the real issues. And so, anyway. All right, here's another horrible bill that you need to look out for, and please contact your representatives about. This is House Bill 1 for a flat tax city government. Adam Matthews, our representative, is a sponsor. He said in an Inquirer article he has no idea how to pay for the loss of $1.5 billion in taxes that will come about if this is passed. HB 1 would replace Ohio's graduated income tax, under which tax rates go up with an income to a top rate of 3.99, with a flat tax of 2.75 tax on income over $26,000. The Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy estimates the cost of more than $2 billion per year of this flat tax. Part of the burden would be shifted back onto schools and local authorities by doing away with a state-funded 10% property tax rollback. So, right now, Ohio has a huge rainy day fund that would pay for a lot of this, but it would really weaken state finances going forward, and it would mean immediate cuts in funding for local governments and libraries. Another cost would be probably to increase sales taxes and excise taxes to cover it. So House Bill 1, horrible, this flat tax. The second one would Senate Bill 11, would totally destroy public schools. This is an EdChoice private school voucher expansion. Now, right now, Ohio has open enrollment. Dollars follow the child. A child can go to any school district they want as long as you can get them there. And the tax dollars follow it, as long as it's a public school. What this is doing is that the tax dollars go to any school, even a private school. It gives $5,500 for every student in grades K to 8 and $7,500 to every student to attend private schools. This would include students who are currently attending private schools. Everyone would be eligible to get this. And homeschoolers would get a non-refundable state tax credit of $2,000. An analysis for a similar bill that didn't go through last year said that it would increase the cost of the voucher program by $527 million next year, and at $527 million. And because the state school funding formula is based on enrollment, school districts and other public schools whose students take the scholarship are likely to lose state foundation aid. School districts and community schools could lose up to $68.5 million in state aid if this bill passes. And again, it is very likely to pass since we have a majority, both houses are. So, some bad things in store for education. And so all I can say is, in closing, get active, stay involved, look at who's running for school board, that's all important, and write your legislators to fund the public schools. That's it. Thank you.
I think it's like from Miriam or Nina, or I think so, or it could be Nina, but I don't think she's in here. I think it's Miriam. That's delightful. I'll have to tell Rabbi Shaff. They are in there. There's several in there.